Hello and welcome to People and Profit, where we look at how business shapes our world. I'm Stephen Carroll. Coming up, cashing in on the end of sanctions. We'll look at the companies eyeing up Iran as the economy braces for an investor influx. A market meltdown and economic growth stalled. We're asking if China's government is losing its grip on the world's second largest economy. Plus, teaching children valuable lessons about money or indoctrinating them into the cult of capitalism. We'll look at the London theme park where kids have jobs and bills to pay. First though, could Iran be the investment opportunity of the decade? The nuclear deal done in Vienna paves the way for the lifting of sanctions that have suffocated the Iranian economy for more than 30 years. Those measures locked down the market for importers and effectively crippled its access to the financial markets. The United States and the European Union imposed the heaviest embargoes on Tehran. Clovis Casali now looks back at the measures and the effects that they've had.
November 1979, Iranian students stormed the US embassy in Tehran, taking dozens of American citizens hostage. The crisis led to the first set of sanctions against the newly founded Islamic Republic. Washington froze Iranian government assets in the United States and US banks overseas, totaling $12 billion. In 1987, a new trade embargo was put in place with Tehran accused of sponsoring international terrorism. As of the mid-90s, Washington banned any type of US involvement with Iran's oil industry. By 2010, fresh sanctions were added, dubbed unprecedented by the US.
American laws and regulations prohibited any US person to get involved in any business transaction in Iran. Those sanctions had a horrendous impact upon the Iranian economy, because at the end of the day, America is the largest economy in the world.
Sanctions also targeted individuals and institutions helping finance Tehran's nuclear and missile programs. As for the European Union, the first set of sanctions came in 2006, but the Iranian regime remained defiant. So in 2012, the EU stepped up the pressure.
The SWIFT system, which basically enables transfer of funds from one bank account to another, was cut off with Iran. This implies that it is technically impossible for any bank in the world to conduct a money transfer with reference to an Iranian bank account.
Western nations made sure Iran's economy was more isolated than ever. Iran got an estimated 80% of its foreign currencies from selling oil, and in 2013, Tehran acknowledged it was losing up to $8 billion a month in potential oil revenue. The financial pressure over the years had a strong impact on Iranian society.
So, who stands to profit as those economic sanctions are lifted? Well, William Hildebrandt is here with more on that. Will.
Stephen, we begin looking by Iran's most crucial sector of the economy, oil and gas. Now, the country has some of the largest reserves in the world, and there are $100 billion of new deals down the pipeline for Western companies. This is crucial because oil accounts for 40% of government revenues. So, who are the players? Iran has already reached out to a number of oil giants, but at just 1 million barrels a day, crude exports are only half of their pre-sanctions level. And for that figure to rise dramatically, Iran needs foreign investment. Now, there's also hope to jumpstart what used to be the 10th largest auto market in the world. Today, there are only 100 vehicles per 1,000 people. That figure is 8 times lower than here in France. Peugeot Citroën is already in talks to start manufacturing cars in Iran, while its rival Renault has explored similar possibilities. And there are hopes aviation could take off too. Both Iran and Western officials estimate the country needs 400 new passenger planes. That means there would be plenty of business down the road for manufacturers like Airbus, Boeing, and others. Now, there are plenty of benefits for international companies, but let's not forget about the 80 million people living in Iran. Tehran said foreign investment will create jobs and fight high inflation. The economy rebounded from recession last year, and economists expect robust growth figures if the sanctions are lifted. Stephen?
OK, well, thank you very much for that. Next, we're going to go to China, where the government's been back pulling its economic strings again. Authorities were forced to introduce strict controls on the stock market after a third of the value of Chinese shares was wiped out in just 3 weeks. China's economy has been slowing down for months now, with growth stalling at 7%, its lowest level in 7 years. That's raising new challenges for the authorities, who've typically stepped in the past to prop up growth. They're still keen to stress, though, that they're in control of the economy.
The Chinese government is perfectly capable of preventing any regional and systematic risks from happening. It is capable and has the confidence to promote the stable development of the stock market and the domestic economy.
Well, for more on this, let's turn to Jean-François D'Amelio, who's the head of the think tank Asia Centre. Thank you for being with us, first of all.
Hello.
We were just hearing there the Chinese government saying again that it's capable of controlling the economy. How true is that?
Well, it is true. The Chinese economy is managed. So, you know, we're talking about an economy where you have private players, you have lots of government players, but at the end of the day, it's still a planned economy. And even if you can do a lot of things on your own, at the end of the day, the benchmark is what does the government want in terms of message to be passed on to international investors and to the local population.
Well, let's talk about that message, because the steps that we saw the Chinese government take in the stock market were pretty drastic by international standards. What are the risks attached with this change and these steps they've taken?
One of the steps that the government took is not only relaxing some of the rules to give some breather to the stock market, but it's also to suspend the trading of some stocks. So yes, the stock market rebounded, but it rebounded on even thinner volumes because only a portion of the shares which are listed in Shanghai resumed trading. And on top of this, of course, the money has been channeled to certain stocks. So even if it were a market before this crisis, it's even less of a market as of today.
And is that as a result of a conscious policy change, or was it just pure panic planning that saw them make this change?
Well, it's not far from being panic. You know, we have to remember that so far, government interventionism in Asia always worked out. If we remember the 1997 crisis, it's only because the Chinese government intervened massively together with the Hong Kong government that the crisis avoided Hong Kong, avoided China, and the whole region bounced back. But this time, there was like panic because the move to liberalize the capital flows in China was on, the trust was coming back, and then all of a sudden you run the risk of trust evading, and this whole movement of launching new IPOs, slowing down or even stopping, and basically jeopardizing like 6 months, 9 months, maybe 1 year of efforts.
And what does this tell us about the Chinese government's broader economic policies? We know they've stepped in the past to try and keep economic growth at a certain rate. Yeah. The most recent figures tell us they're still at 7%, which is their target.
Exactly.
It's astronomical by European standards, 7%. But is the Chinese government going to change tack again?
It tells us that it can work as long as it works. In other words, you can manage an economy through bank financing. You can manage an economy if you plan infrastructure building. But you cannot manage consumption. You cannot manage a liberalized market. And what is the stock market at the end of the day, if not a liberalized market? I'm not saying that the Chinese official, the government, is totally ignorant of the market rules. But when it comes to managing an economy that large and liberalizing it, then it's a different story.
Let's talk about management styles. If we have another crisis here in Europe around Greece, and the management of that crisis over a long period of time, perhaps might tell us that are the Chinese going about things the right way when it comes to the way they manage crises? Is it more effective?
Well, there's a difference of nature. Because yes, you can manage, once again, you can manage a planned economy, and you can manage when you know that at the end of the day, you hold most of the keys. The debate here in Europe is very different. You know, you have different doors, you have different locks, and each person has a different key or a different way to open the lock. But that's the way we wanted it. And maybe we have not gone far enough in building Europe, but for sure, we are exactly in our liberal theory, which we have to defend against all odds, even when people tell us, look, the Chinese economy works better. Yes, probably for China it works very well. But can it be borrowed here in Europe? Probably not. We have such a long history of liberalism, you cannot just impose new rules.
OK, Jean-François D'Amelio from the Asia Centre, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
We're going to turn on now to something completely different, and it's never too early to learn the value of a hard day's work. A theme park in London is trying to give children a sneak preview of adult life, complete with jobs and pay packets. The idea has been criticised for indoctrinating the young into consumerism and branding. The Mexican company behind the park, though, says it's simply teaching children that nothing in life comes for free. Oliver Farry has more.
This amusement park for kids in London doesn't hand out sweets or toys, but it does give something almost as good: banknotes. Welcome to KidZania, the imaginary world where kids play at being adults. Participants can take the role of 60 different professions: paramedic, radio journalist or delivery girl. And it looks very much like the real grown-up world, with actual brands present, such as here, where kids can learn to be an apprentice salesperson at H&M or a Formula One mechanic at Renault. But KidZania, which is Mexican-owned, says it's not all about familiarising youngsters with consumerism.
Our world, that is a world that consists, to a degree, of brands. This is not brand education, this is careers awareness.
Careers with all the entitlements and responsibilities of being an adult, and all the rewards too.
Now the best part of the job now is that you're going to get paid your first salary. So you've got 8 more kids to add to that. Does that sound good? Yeah. Money!
Kids earn money for work they have done, and then they can deposit it in the bank and get a credit card. And it's all educational.
So it's about getting out of life what you put into it and teaching children, the next generation, that nothing's easy in life. You have to earn your right to enjoy life.
But there's one break from the slog of real life available: university, where the kids can earn the right to more money and even greater happiness.
Well, that's all the happiness we have for you in this edition of People in Profit. If you want to get in touch, you can go to our Facebook page, France 24 Business, or you can tweet me at NewsStephen. Thank you for watching. See you next time.